Let's go over every way that you can build Dracotail. So every Dracotail list basically is going to start with these 36 cards in the main deck. Maybe your non-engine is different based on what format you're in or whatever your preferences are, but essentially you have 15 or so hand traps and then 21 engine cards, maybe 22 if you're playing Frixel, no matter what. But from there, we can fill out this deck a lot of different ways. And we can also cut down on some of those hand traps to play a bigger side package as well. So we're going to go over every way you can build Dracotail. There's about 9 ways that I'm going to go over in this video, which is a lot. Like, you don't really think that there's 9 different ways to build your deck, but I do think there are, and some of them are a little more obsolete, but they have seen play and have seen success. So I think they warrant mentioning and a little bit of discussion, okay? So starting off here, we have our basics. We have our 6 spells, 3 traps in the main deck. We have 3 5 mana, 3 Lucius, 3 Malulu, 2 Pan, 1 Urgula. You can kind of jumble those ratios up a little bit, maybe 3 Pan, maybe 2 Urgula, whatever. But this is basically what we're starting with. And there's a few different monsters that we can actually fill out this main deck with. And depending on what we want to do there, we can fill out our extra deck with different stuff too. In our extra deck, we basically have 3 copies of Retaliating, at least 1 Gulamel, the Mysterion and Secretarion, 1 of each, or 2 Secretarion, whatever. And then Chaos Darksource Dragon has become pretty staple in the list, as well as Filio Regis. And then we have Spirit with Eyes of Blue, Cross Sheep, SP, and Seals. So most decks are going to have some arrangement of these cards. Maybe you cut down on some of the links, but this is like your skeleton. Like, this is your basic. If I'm playing Dracotail, I need to have these cards in my list to start with. And then we can go from there on how we want to tech it out, okay? Let's go with the first build, which is the most popular build right now. That's going to be the branded variant. So in the branded variant, we're going to be playing the Frixel for sure, and then we're also going to be playing 2 branded fusion, or however many is legal branded fusion, and then 1 Fallen of Albaz. And then in the extra deck, at least 1 Albion, 1 of the Sanctifier Albion. Lubellion is in here, and Lubellion is played because it outs Retaliating C. That's really your main reason to make this card, is if you activate branded fusion, you can go into Lubellion with Malulu Albaz and then make Chaos Star Source to pop the Retaliating C and then keep playing. I like playing Mirror Jade. A lot of people are not playing Mirror Jade in the branded version, but I think Mirror Jade is so good, so I'm going to play it anywhere I have branded fusion in my deck. And then also a Titaniclad. This card is in here as number 1, a Lunalight Liger Dancer out, because you can use branded fusion, send Albaz and Nibiru, make Titaniclad and punch over. And then also, yeah, you can use it like Mirror Jade, send the Titaniclad in some situations, summon back Albaz, make more stuff. So yeah, that's really what we're going for here. And then another card I want to mention is going to be the Fallen and the Virtuous. So this card can be in your main, it can be in your side, or you don't have to play it at all. But the advantage is with the branded version, you're already playing the branded or the Albaz fusions that you need as requirement for Fallen and the Virtuous. So if you do play the quick play spell, you probably bump up this Albion to 2 copies and then cut down somewhere else, just because going this send Albion to set another copy is really powerful. But yeah, that's really how your deck is going to change up if you're playing Fallen and the Virtuous. The advantages here with branded is, number 1, the biggest advantage is that branded fusion is a full-on Dracotail starter. Okay, so it's a 1 card, send Frixel, get whatever spell card you need from your deck with the Frixel effect. And then also branded fusion, if you already have Dracotail cards, will just get you a better board by making yourself a Sanctifier or a Mirror Jade on top. Okay. Another advantage of the branded deck is that branded fusion is really good going second as well. Like, it forces a lot of interruptions. Obviously, it's an Ash Blossom Magnet, but yeah, it means your Ketu or your Rahu is going to resolve, and you have enough power spells where getting Ashed on branded fusion is not so bad. And then there's also the synergy, of course, with the Fallen and the Virtuous. There are combos where you can make your Albion on your board with branded fusion and then fuse off that Albion, so Albion sets the Fallen and the Virtuous in the end phase. So it gives you access to additional non-engine as well. One of the disadvantages, however, of the branded deck is that it locks you into fusion summoning for the whole turn, which means we cannot get into Spirit and Seals or SP or Cross Sheep or any of that. So if you're trying to mesh this deck with any other extra deck technology, it's got to be fusion monsters basically because of the full turn lock. And then besides that, like, there's you have to play Bricks, you have to play Frixel and Albaz, neither of which you really want to draw. Honestly, I'd rather draw Albaz than Frixel because at least you can hard make the Albaz fusions if you have the Albaz, or you can use it for Chaos Star Source. But if you draw Frixel and branded fusion, it feels so bad. That pretty much wraps up the pros and cons. So now let's move on to the second variant. Let's talk about these guys, the Dark End Evaporation Dragon and Light End Sublimation Dragon. These guys are level 8 dragon monsters. You can banish one level 8 dragon monster from your extra deck to special either of these guys from your hand. The light or dark are both summoned that way. And then you are locked into dragon monsters for the rest of the turn. The dark one is the better one because it has two effects. One of them is to fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field. So it's another way to fuse. The light one also has that exact same effect. But remember, you are locked into dragons once this guy's on the board. So you're basically locked into going for Arthalion. You're locked into going for the Secretarion, or the Chaos Star Source, or the Philia Regis, and we'll talk about a couple other options after I finish this card text. And then the reason Dark End is better is because it also has a removal effect where it can target one other attack position monster in the field, make this card lose attack, and then destroy the opponent's monster, or destroy the monster. Okay, so it's good that it has removal. The downside is that it has to be an attack position monster, so it's good into link decks, but if your opponent knows you're on this, they can summon their stuff in defense, which they might be doing anyway to play around Dracotail Horn. So this removal effect is kind of lousy. The Light Dragon does not have a very good effect. It just makes your opponent's monster lose attack points, so you're never using that. And also, it's kind of funny how this card text reads. It might seem like you can fuse and remove, but no, you have to pick one. You have to either fuse or remove the monster, because that's just how the card text works. Okay, so a couple things in the extra deck that we can make with these cards. So I already talked about Chaos Star Source, Philia Regis. These are both good cards, and they both are going to work well with our Dark and Light End Dragons. But also we have this card, Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, which requires one Light level 8 Dragon Monster and one Dark level 8 Dragon Monster. So basically, if you draw both of these cards, you can set up this Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, which is a very strong card. Make sure you understand how it works, though. Its negation effects are mandatory, so if you start activating effects, you're going to negate your own effects with this card. So basically, it's 3 negates, but they're mandatory, and it's the next 3 effects that activate no matter who activates them. Another card that we can make with these guys is going to be the number 38 Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy. So this kind of stands in for any rank 8 Dragon XC's monster, but this is the main one you're going to go for because essentially what you can do is use one of these guys to fuse and make a Dracotail Arthalion using stuff in your hand, and then you can go ahead and overlay the Arthalion, which doesn't really have any use after it's used its effect, and the dragon monster, whether it's light or dark, into the Hope Harbinger. So you can go ahead and go into that guy. Another thing you can do technically is make the Dragluxion. Let's see, which one? This guy, to search 7th Tachyon, which can search something else, but like that's a whole mess, and I don't think you would ever do that. But it is an option, I will just point it out, okay? And then, yeah, it makes making Heretic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres very easy, because just by default, you're going to have 2 dragons on your board. So, yeah, if you really like making spheres, then these guys are pretty decent additions to your deck, because it'll make it very easy and very consistent to make the spheres, or make the Hope Harbinger. So, depends kind of if you're going first or going second, and that kind of stuff. Alright, let's talk about pros and cons. So, the pros of this deck, of this version, are that you have additional ways to fuse. So it's very consistent going first. You have, 3 or 4 or however many you want to play ways to fuse. You do get access to power cards like Hope Harbinger, which is really nice for going first. And then same with Light and Darkness Dragon in situations, depending on how many of these guys you're playing. Like if you're playing the full 6 copies, then maybe you warrant putting this guy in your deck. But otherwise, I don't think I'm playing it. And then it makes making spheres very easy as well. The cons, however, is that these guys are very bad going second because that they are ignition effects to fuse. So let's say you just summon one of these guys to your board. Your opponent has the opportunity to remove that card before you can actually use the fusion effect. So you just slap down a Dark and Evaporation Dragon. Your opponent goes, okay, I'll special summon Cookie or special summon Cookie Way and book this guy face down. And it actually gives your opponent's like flip face down effects value. It gives your opponent's removal effects value, which are typically not good into the Dracotail deck. But yeah, in this particular case, flipping this guy face down is going to stop you from activating a fusion effect. So that's pretty good. Same with the removal effect of this guy. Like on paper, it seems kind of nice, but in reality, like if your opponent sees you have this guy on your board and that you're about to remove their guy, they're probably going to activate something to remove this guy or stop them from using the removal effect. So yeah, going first, these guys are good. Going second, they're not very good at all, and that's why I think they've fallen out of the meta quite a little bit. Let's move on to the next version. We're just going to talk about a similar concept, which is going to be just Blazing Cartesia in your deck. This card is going to be like a different version of the Dark and Light End Dragons that I just talked about, because it's a summon that you can use and activate to fuse. It's just another fusion summon. The reason Cartesia is better, there's multiple reasons. Number one, it's a quick effect to fuse, so you can summon this guy, fuse on your turn, fuse on your opponent's turn. Also, it's not weak to removal, because if you just summon Cartesia and your opponent activates an effect to remove Cartesia, you can chain the Cartesia to fuse it off. So that's going to be really good. Also, it has a similar pro as Dark and Light and Dragon, is that it gives you access to Heretic Seal of Heavenly Spheres, because we have a level 4 spellcaster. We can go into Spirit with Eyes of Blue and then up into Spheres with your Arthalion. So it's a really easy concept there. And then also, one of the main features or like concepts in theory of the Dracotail deck is to have a handful of monsters, and Cartesia will always add back to your hand if a fusion monster goes to the grave. So if you summon Cartesia, summon Arthalion, Spirit with Eyes of Blue, link them off for the Spheres, then add Cartesia back in the end phase. You keep up your hand advantage, set yourself up better for an Arthalion on your opponent's turn, and or just having Cartesia to normal summon on the next turn and be able to fuse again. So it's very versatile here as well. And then sometimes you're going to see Cartesia played when you play Branded Fusion or Albaz or Sanctifier, because we have another light target to send down with the Branded Fusion to make this Sanctifier Dragon. And then what you can do is Arthalion add back the Cartesia a little bit later in the combo, and then because Albaz is in your graveyard, you can then special the Cartesia again, and then have more fusion summons, right? A downside of Cartesia, however, is that it does require normal summon in general. Like, unless you have Albaz in your graveyard and you open Branded Fusion plus Cartesia, it's going to require your normal summon, and your Dracotail deck already has a lot of demand for normal summons, so that's going to be a little bit conflicting, but Cartesia is still really good value. Being even like if you have it in your hand and you don't normal summon it or summon it to your board, if you just use it as fusion material, the fact that it's going to come back to your hand to be more fusion material later is really strong. So yeah, for that reason, Cartesia is pretty good. It also gives you access to Grand Guignol, which can send whatever light or dark target you want to play, like including Garura, for example. So if you're also playing Super Poly, there's a little bit of deck building synergy there, but typically this card is not really played that much, because you're not usually using Cartesia to make this guy. You're using it to make Arthalion or Gulamel or whatever. And then another thing I do want to mention is that you can summon this guy out with Fusion Deployment. So this is a card that I like to play personally. Fusion Deployment, reveal Grand Guignol, summon out this Cartesia, and then it gets it into rotation. However, that does lock you into fusion, so you can't go for the Seals line or the Cross Sheep lines or whatever. But yeah, Fusion Deployment is pretty strong if you want more consistent fusion effects. Okay, So that's going to wrap up our Cartesia discussion. On to the next, we have Shaddoll. So this one was popular when Dracotail came out, but it has not been popular recently. So the concept here is to play about 4 Shaddoll names in your main deck. We have Beast, we have Hedgehog, we have Squamata. And then you're going to play these because, Squamata can send either Beast or Hedgehog. Beast will draw you a card. Hedgehog will add you a Shaddoll monster. So the point is to keep up your hand advantage as you fuse stuff away. Okay? The other point is that you can make El Shaddoll Winda, including on your opponent's turn, if you happen to open a god hand of 5 mana plus Shaddoll monster plus Malulu. And you can go for a turn 1 El Shaddoll Winda, like on your opponent's turn, and basically skip their turn. However, that's not really that great because, alright, now you have a Winda on your board to start your turn, and unless you have a interesting hand, it's going to be difficult to link it off, or you're not going to want to link it off, or whatever. I guess that's not really that bad of a disadvantage, considering you skipped your opponent's turn, but I don't know. I don't think Winda is, like, all that awesome, or, let me rephrase, Winda's great, but I don't think it's going to come up enough for you to warrant playing it or these cards, okay? I do love the Shaddoll cards, though, so I'm tempted to play these cards, but I don't know. It's an interesting feature. Another feature is that if you are going second or you want to side in, you can side in Shaddoll Fusions because it's another 1-card starter for your Dracotail deck. Just like Branded Fusion is at all times, Shaddoll Fusion is when you're going second, assuming your opponent has an extra deck monster, which almost everyone is going to have that. Because you can use Shaddoll Fusion, send down one of your Shaddoll monsters, maybe Beast, maybe Hedgehog, whatever, and a Dracotail name. You can send Urgula to make Grista, you can send Frixel to make Construct, you can send Pan to make Wendigo. Nobody plays this card because this card is so terrible. Or you can even send down Lucius for a Shekanaga. There's the water one, Anoyatelis for 5 mana, or just the Malulu for Winda as well, but you're probably not going to want to do that since you're just going to start playing and have Winda on your board at the start of your turn. Not ideal. Okay, you can also side in something like Shaddoll Dragon for additional spell trap removal when you use that as fusion material if that comes up. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility here with the Shaddoll version. Because Shaddoll Fusion is a power card that you can play, you're probably not going to main deck this card. You're probably going to side it, but it's going to be an interesting concept for sure to consider. Okay, let's go on to the next one, King of the Swamp plus Poly. So this one was also very popular when Dracotail came out. Basically, it's good because it's versatile. You can use King of the Swamp as fusion material from your hand, just as any blank monster, or as a specific monster using its effect. Specifically, you're typically going to be making the Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon using King of the Swamp as material, because it's just a big monster. King of the Swamp is going to replace Blue Eyes as material, and also it allows you to reset your Dracotail trap cards later on in the game. Like, say something gets negated or you have to shuffle something else back, you can use Tyrant Dragon to reset your trap card to your board and continue on your grind game. But now that a third trap has come out, that doesn't really come up, or it's not as important anymore. So the Tyrant Dragon is kind of fallen off as like a bonus feature. You can also make the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, which is going to be a negate for you. Of course, you're not going to get the pop effect because you won't be using any normal monsters to make this guy, but you will be making King of the Swamp, or using King of the Swamp plus a Malulu typically, or Arthalion or whatever, to go into the Red Eyes, and then you're going to have a negate on your board, so that's going to be pretty good. But the downside is you do have to discard to use that negate, and Dracotail hates discarding because it wants to have stuff in its hand as fusion material. And then also, not only can you use King of the Swamp as a monster, of course, but you can also use its effect, discard it to add Poly. So we can have Poly as just another fusion spell, and that also means we can play the Guardian Chimera as a generic monster to fuse with when we have polymerization. So Guardian Chimera is another card that we can play in the extra deck here that'll get its protection effects because Poly will be in the graveyard, plus drawing and popping, and it's all good stuff. So there's a lot of versatility here. It's kind of similar to the Cartesia and the Dragon monsters, but kind of just a little bit different. I don't really like this version because King of the Swamp, I feel like, is fake advantage. Like, I would rather have a better card in my hand to fuse away, like a better monster. And it's not often enough that I'm missing a way to fuse where I want to discard this guy for poly. So I would rather just play Cartesia and get that constant advantage rather than King of the Swamp for the one-time advantage with fun cards like Tyrant Dragon or Dragoon. But yeah. And then now also we have on to our next version, a kind of a different build here. So this is the first time we're going to take out some of those cards in our base structure, and we're going to show off the Dracotail K9 deck. Okay, so K9, we're removing some of our traditional hand traps, but we're replacing them with Izuna, which is kind of a pseudo hand trap, of course. Then we have Lupus. So you can play this two ways. You can just play Izuna and Lupus, or you can also play Jokel and Lantern in Case and Forced Release. And then depending on the size of your package means, like also affects the size of your extra deck cards that you're playing to support this. So typically we're going to have Ripper, we're going to have Jax now, we're going to have Werewolf, we're going to have Valon, and we're going to have Typhon. So Typhon is going in because Lupus can make it on your opponent's turn, of course. If one of your guys gets removed, you can still Lupus for Typhon, which is going to be really strong in some matchups. And then you can also have the option to play Nash Knight, CXYZ, Ash Knight, the C104, the regular number 104, but that's going to take a lot of your extra deck space. So you're going to have to cut stuff like Philia Regis, Chaos Star Source, probably even the Cross Sheep here, and then you can play the Nash Knight, CXYZ, and the other guy, the 104 and C104. But yeah, that's 4 slots we're going to need. So we're going to even have to cut SP or a Ripper here, right? But yeah, depending on the amount of the amount of K9 cards you want to have in, kind of, it's up to you. But this is a version I've seen. And then also with some synergy, you can also play the Shaddoll Beast in this version because Shaddoll Beast is a level 5, so it's going to go along with your Jokel. You're only really going to play Beast when you're also playing Jokel, just to increase your level 5 count. And don't forget that Jokel also works with 5 mana. However, very rarely are you going to really want to summon 5 mana with Jokel. Like, you almost always want to have 5 mana in your hand to use as a fusion effect, right? The only exception is, like, you use 5 mana, you add it back with Urgula, and now you want to push for more damage or push for game. You can then 5 mana, or Jokel summon the 5 mana to go for more. Or, like, if you value Ripper more and you haven't used Rahu yet, you can make Ripper and all that kind of stuff. So you do have options for sure. And this is kind of an interesting build here where, you know, I don't know. Another advantage that has kind of gone away is that this version played better into the dimensional barrier, but now the barrier is banned. Like, this version kind of loses that specific play because obviously if you get debarriered for fusion, okay, we're playing Xyz with K9 stuff, right? And then we're going to try to set up just fusions on our opponent's turn and be fine. So yeah, that's gone away. Also, these guys are good into something like Retaliating C as well. Like, if you get Retail Seed, okay, I'm going to play K9, and then you can probably remove the card and set up Force Release and all that kind of stuff. So you have that going for you into the Retail C. Also, in the mirror match, K9 stuff is very good against Dracotail stuff. So you do have that advantage as well. If you're struggling in the mirror, you want to play K9, go ahead. All right. On to our next version. Now we're getting into a couple versions that I've never really experimented with or played before. So the first one is going to be Magistus, and I'll talk about this Spoon card, or Spenta, whatever it's going to be called. But the point is that Magistus is just an additional small package in your main deck and extra deck that will be able to set up a negate or a quick effect snatch steal. So the basis of this version is this guy, Crowley. If it's used as fusion material, it can be Alistair. And then it says you can use the following effects once per turn. If it's added to your hand, except by drawing it, you can special it. And then if it's specialed, you can fusion a Magistus or invoked fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field. All Spoon does is discard this card to add Crowley. And then Crowley will get its effect. If it's added, it'll summon itself and confuse. And then Crowley is going to essentially do a little bit of comboing to go into Zoroa, which is going to be a negate and destroy. It negates a card and then destroys a different card on the field. So it's not straight up negate and destroy whatever's activated. It negates what's activated and destroys something else. And then we have this blue guy, Iwas, the Magistus spell Spirit. This one is a quick effect, snatch, steal, like steal your opponent's guy, put this guy in the equip zone. And yeah, and then these guys, Chorozo, and Artemis, these are kind of engine requirements to get into the Zoroa and our Iwas. So yeah, this is what we're working with here. You can also summon out stuff like Invoked. Caliga is a popular one. It's an Alistair plus a dark monster, and remember that Crawley is treated as Alistair, so we can go ahead and make Caliga with this guy plus Malulu or plus Chorozo or whatever the heck is dark on your board. And then I guess in theory you can also make the Mechaba if you have a light monster for some reason. Okay, so yeah, interesting concept, interesting features. You know, it's seen some play, but not a whole lot of competitive success just yet. But this Spoon card is going to make it a lot more consistent. So I do expect this build to be popular when Spoon comes out. I think it's in the next main set, or I think a release is announced somewhere, but I don't know where. The very last build I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to briefly mention because I don't know much about it. I've never even seen it played. It's going to be Dracotail Dragonmaid. This is not the build. Do not take this list. I just put some cards in the list to show off. So Chamber Dragonmaid will add a Dragonmaid spell trap, and then we have Hospitality, special one from your hand or graveyard, and then you know, I don't even know what the cards do, to be totally honest with you. But I do know that the extra deck cards are good. We have Shio, this is a negate, and then we have Ladies Dragonmaid, this is a fusion summon by shuffling stuff back. So I know that it can make these guys, which are good cards, so that's the advantage of it. However, I'm pretty sure the main deck requirements are a lot, like maybe 10 cards or so. Don't quote me on that, but I think it is a significant investment. But also, they're all dragons, so it allows you to go into seals. It allows you to make stuff like Chaos Star Source a lot easier, or Ophelia Regis a lot easier. So you do have a lot of your typical options for Dracotail. A lot of the similar advantages that the light and dark end dragons have, except it takes a lot of main deck space and extra deck space. So if you're interested in this kind of version, I would recommend going to check out some other video to find an actual build. But there is a build with Dragonmaid that I don't really know too much about besides this. Okay, so that's 9 different builds of Dracotail and their pros and cons. So we had Branded, we had the Dark and Light and Dragon, we had Cartesia, we had Shaddoll, King of the Swamp, K9, Magistus, and Dragonmaid. Let me know in the comments which one of these is your favorite, or which one of these you're most intrigued to try. Because I have only played like 3 of these 9 builds, so I do want to get into a couple other funny options for locals just to try them out and see how it goes. Yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and you know, tell your friends, share this with your friends if they're interested in playing Dracotail. And with that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.